Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today, we re-diving into a topic that fascinates many of us. The books that did unquite make it into the New Testament. These are often called the New Testament Apocrypha, and they're filled with incredible stories about Jesus and the early Christian communities. So, what are these texts? And why weren't they included in the Bible we know today? Let's explore. First, let's be clear. The word apocrypha simply means hidden things. It doesn't automatically mean these texts are false or heretical. They were widely read and respected in the early centuries of Christianity. These books often fill in the gaps left by the four canonical Gospels. For instance, have you ever wondered what Jesus was like as a child? The canonical Gospels, like Matthew and Luke, tell us about his birth and then jump to him being 12 years old in the temple. What happened in between? This is where texts like the infancy Gospel of Thomas come in. This book tells stories of a young Jesus from age 5 to 12 performing miracles. In one famous story, a young Jesus is playing by a stream and fashions 12 sparrows out of clay. When a Pharisee scolds him for doing this on the Sabbath, Jesus claps his hands and tells the clay birds to fly away, and they do. It's a powerful image, showing his divine nature even as a child. However, not all the stories are so gentle. In another tale, a boy accidentally bumps into Jesus, who then causes the boy to wither. These stories paint a picture of a young Jesus who is still learning to control his immense power. A very different portrayal from the Gospels we're used to. Another fascinating category of apocryphal texts are the Gospels that offer different perspectives on Jesus' teachings. The Gospel of Thomas, for example, isn't a narrative like Matthew, Mark, Luke, or John. Instead, it's a collection of 114 sayings attributed to Jesus. Some of these sayings are familiar, echoing what we find in the canonical Gospels, but others are cryptic and mystical, like saying 77, "I am the light that is over all things. I am all. From me all came forth, and to me all extends. Split a piece of wood, and I am there." This gospel emphasizes seeking knowledge and looking within to find the divine, a theme that was very prominent in some early Christian groups. Then there are the stories about the apostles after Jesus' resurrection, known as the Acts of the Apostles. But what about the other apostles? The apocryphal Acts, like the Acts of Peter or the Acts of Paul and Thecla, tell of their missionary journeys, miracles, and martyrdoms. The Acts of Paul and Thecla is particularly interesting. It tells the story of Thecla, a young noblewoman who becomes a devoted follower of Paul after hearing him preach about chastity. She abandons her fiancé, follows Paul, and faces incredible trials, including being thrown to wild beasts in an arena, only to be miraculously saved. Thecla becomes a powerful teacher and evangelist in her own right, showcasing the significant role women played in the early church. So, why were these books left out of the New Testament? The process of forming the canon was long and complex, taking several centuries. Early church leaders, like Irenaeus and Athanasius, established criteria for inclusion. They looked for books that had apostolic origin, meaning they were written by an apostle or a close associate. They also looked for theological consistency with the core teachings of the church and widespread use and acceptance among congregations. Many apocryphal texts were written later in the 2nd and 3rd centuries, and some contained teachings that church leaders considered divergent from the mainstream faith. For example, some Gnostic texts suggested that the physical world was evil, a belief that contradicted the doctrine of a good creation by God. Ultimately, the canon was formed to provide a reliable and unified foundation for Christian belief and practice. While the apocryphal Gospels and Acts weren't included, they remain invaluable. They give us a richer, more complex picture of early Christianity, showing the incredible diversity of beliefs and stories that circulated in those first few centuries. They reveal the questions early Christians were asking and the creative ways they sought to understand Jesus and his message. Exploring these hidden texts isn't about challenging the Bible, but about appreciating the vibrant and dynamic world from which it emerged. Thanks so much for watching. What do you find most interesting about these apocryphal stories? Let me know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this journey into the lost books of the Bible, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more deep dives into history and faith. See you next time.